it cost you. So.
Yep. All right. This should be popping up any second now. I hit start broadcast. So
Yeah, I see it says live. I'm waiting to see it start on the.
There we go. Second now. I hit start.
There we go. And that should take care of the echo because I muted mine. And I lost my chat window. Where'd my chat window go? Restore chat. It sounds like you need to mute your YouTube stream now.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. Crud, I got like 4 things open. Sounds like you need to mute your... I have 3 different ones open. Where is this other one coming from? Okay, there. That's open. That's open. Game. So yeah, I kind of like the layout of this. I can just I can pop our chats in here.
Yep. And if you pay the extra, there's all sorts of other stuff you can do too, apparently, once you pay for it. But I didn't want to pay $25 a month or whatever it was for the
$25 a month. I paid
the full.
It was $120, and I have a lifetime license.
Wow, our 4 people waiting dropped to none.
Ouch.
Oh well, we'll see if anybody pops in.
My chair is so broken. This is. I've done this in every stream too. I'm constantly pushing my chair back up.
Let me retweet this. Retweet with comment. You're live.
Let me get rid of this thing. It's annoying too, like with setting up all of the, I just finalized another belt order. And like, after looking at it, I'm like, even getting a giant group discount for the White Knight, it doesn't help as much.
Yeah.
Like it's, for you, it's just going to be easier. Cause like the price that I give people includes, cause they won't ship it out to individual addresses. Like they have to send it to me and I have to you. So like you're partially paying for me getting it set, for it getting sent to me, for then to me send it to you.
Yeah, it's almost better if you try and find people all, if you can find people all close to the same place, send it to one person and let everybody go pick it up.
Yeah, like I got this last order, I'm like, this guy in France wants one, and I'm like, your shipping's $210 for a $400 belt.
Yep. And I bet you I know who it is, because I'm pretty sure I've got at least one person that's messaged me from France about it. It's funny. I've got a guy in Poland that's building one.
I think I just sent a belt to someone in, I can't remember where I sent it to. It was somewhere in Europe, but
there was a guy in Poland building one. There's a guy in, or two students in the Dominican Republic built a larger scale one, but they're using something else for the belt. They're using what did he say? They're using some sort of Teflon mesh belt. Looked like it was working for them though, because they printed a couple big items. So, well, we got 3 watching now. Feel free to join in the chat, everybody. We're kind of just, shooting the breeze until people show up. I'll apologize now. Unfortunately, every chair I own apparently creaks.
This is the only chair I own, and it just constantly gets lower and lower as the stream goes along.
I just figured that was you getting intimidated as the streams went. Okay. I figured, or it's your timer. When you hit bottom, it's time to end the stream.
I don't even know what's wrong with this chair. I just need to get a new one, or either that or like completely bolt down the piston, because I have it at its max height anyway, so it doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah, just print yourself a plastic sleeve to slide in there and lock the piston at the top. I had a I had a BMW when I was in Germany that I had done this lowering kit on and slammed it to the ground. Well, I had to get it onto a ferry to get it to Italy. And I went ahead of time with someone else, and I saw the ramp they had to drive up to get on the ferry. And I was like, there's no way my car will make it up that ramp. It's just not going to happen. I took and bought a bunch of pipe, cut notches in the side, and what I did was I jacked my car up and let the shocks completely extend, and I slid the pieces of pipe in. So basically the pipe caught the top bumper and set on the shock, and I like that. So I basically made my shocks solid, but it extended my suspension to full travel. So my car's like normally it's flush with the fenders. I had 4 inches of airspace. I'm going up, and the guys on the boat were just looking at me because I'm going up. It's got these ribs on the ramps. My car is just bouncing the whole way up and shattering, and it's like, it was the worst feeling in the world going up and down that ramp to get on the boat. But the guys were laughing because they saw me pull up, and I pulled out of the line, and I sat to the side, and the guy looks at me and said, I have to fix my car so I can go up the ramps. And they watched me jack up all 4 corners, slide the pipe in, drop it back down, and they just started chuckling because I went from, what looked like would have been a guy with hydros extended out, but I had to do it manually. And then I got off the boat, and they were sitting there watching as I pulled off the side, pulled all of them back out, and I'm like, back down to the ground, finally tore out. But what you do for your lowrider passion,
Yeah.
Well, I guess we might as well get started. So tell me what you want to see, and I will do my best to show you here.
All right. First things first, I got the GT2 belt routing.
Okay, GT2 belt routing. Let's see. All right. Sorry, everybody, for making you motion sick. Well, let's see. Maybe I can just... Let's see. I'll do my best to explain it first. If you need me to show you a zoom in, let me know. My handy-dandy 7-level screwdriver for my pointer. So you're going to come from... Let's see. Easiest way to do this is... Yeah. You're going to come from the bottom side. Well, no. I'm sorry. Let me start. Put your ends on your belt. I know I've got a piece of belt with an end on it here. Yeah, put your end on your belt. Put your little screw in the bottom. I don't have mine in on this one, but put your screw in. Basically, just take a small hole punch and put a hole, you've got a little tiny one. I've got one of these, like, leather hole punches. Buy it. You can get them at Lowe's for like $12, I think. I used the smallest fitting, and I lined it up. I made a mark with a marker on the belt, and I cut a hole in it, and then I put it back in, and I run the screw through that. These work good, but if you don't put something there and you tighten it up too much, it will just yank the belt right out of the clamp. So once you've got that done, what I do is I put my bolt in and I leave it like just a couple threads catching to where it's just to keep it held in place.
Yeah.
Feed your belt under this pull on the pulley on top here. Run all the way up through the bottom pulley. You run across to the other side, come back down through, and on that side, you will actually be in the extrusion. In the notch, you're going to come all the way down around your pulley on your stepper, out around your idler pulley here, and then you're going to catch the underside of your Y-axis, and then around to the bottom side of your extruder mount.
Okay.
And then you'll repeat, go in the other direction, the same thing. So it basically goes from the extruder out to your axis, up through the top, across the top, back down all the way under your stepper, and then back to the Y-axis and across to the housing.
And that's just one giant piece of it.
Yeah, one giant run for one way, and then one giant run for here. So basically, if you bought, I think I told you buy 5 meters.
Yeah.
Just easiest thing to do is fold it perfectly in half and cut it. You're going to trim more off of it later.
Yeah.
But just fold it in half lengthwise, cut it in half, and then run one half each direction.
All right, to that. Our next lovely topic is wire routing through the channels.
Wire routing through the channel. Okay.
Also, like, partially go into the fact about, like, the hot end and everything.
Hold on just a second here.
Yep.
Okay, Chris Riley just retweeted our thing too, so I wonder if he'll show up.
Awesome.
Knowing him, he's lurking. You lurking, Chris? You can be honest. You can tell us. So let's see. Wiring through the channels. All right. I take my cover off here. Swing this around. Okay, so most of your wiring, when you run, you're going to run right in through the. Can you see enough of it? You're going to run right in through the side clamp. Let me fly you in here close. Try and keep it as steady as I can here. All right, so all your wiring is going to come in through this side mount here. This is like that outer cover that goes on the side mount.
Yeah.
You're going to feed it all through there first, and then once you've got everything set where you want it, you've got your 2 screws here that clamp it down tight so it can't pull and go back and forth anymore. You run the wiring that needs to go to the bed and to the steppers and everything through the inside channel. You know, obviously to this stepper, you run down this side to across to the other side. I just tried to follow in the channels of the cross brace. And then everything that's going to the hot end will come. I don't know if you did it or not on yours. Did you notch the extrusion directly above the hole?
Yeah.
Okay. So you'll run straight up through, and as you can see here, it just tucks nice inside the channel, and then you should have cut 1 notch on your 45 as well. And it'll just keep tucking right in the extrusion all the way up till you get into the right idler.
Yeah.
And then you'll feed it up in through your tube and all the way down to the hot end.
Oh.
Did that all show up on camera? Did I follow my finger good enough?
Definitely came up there. One thing you don't really obviously see is the what is it? The filament runout sensor.
Okay. Yeah. I've got 2. Which did I publish the files for the regular biker switch instead of the duet? Do you know? Did I publish one that look like this?
No.
Okay, I need to publish those then. The duet, it actually bolts in the exact same spot. The duet sensor can mount right here as well. And you've got your 3 wires that feed it. I just had issues with I kept getting too many false positives with it. And sorry, duet, but I just didn't have time to keep playing with the settings and see if I could get it to work right. So in the meantime, I needed something that worked quick and simple. So let me swing over to my other printer here because I have it open right now. I basically just took simple little, micro switch tape and stop, and it's mounted inside there, and the filament feeds right through, and it bolts onto the exact same space as the duet one now.
All right, then. So what is the next thing I have here? So it's probably going to be annoying, but routing the cooling tubes for the Berdair.
Yeah. It basically follows this. I ran the cooling tube up this edge of the support. It's actually tucked in as best I could into the channel, and it rides up along the outside here, and then it's in the wire wrap with everything else all the way down till you get just above the extruder. And then I'm still playing with designs for the tube itself, but yeah, maybe you can see it right there. With that nozzle, I'm actually able to put the full loop that comes with it.
Oh, okay.
Because the nozzle sticks out far enough that I can get away with it. Now, if I go with the E3D one, the hardened one that they made for me, it's too shallow. I can't get this full loop on. And I've switched, like on the White Knight, I did just a half circle instead. And then I've got a second tube just blowing straight across.
Oh, okay, I see that. Let's get rid of that.
Sorry, I keep snagging my mic on my shirt here. There. I'm sure I'm making everybody who's watching this dizzy, constantly moving the camera around, but
yeah, it's either going to be that or then in post when either I'm going to be rewatching this. So, all right, we already went over this, but for the video purpose, sticking the Buildtak sheet on.
All right, sticking the Buildtak sheet on. This I think I can probably do better from right where I'm at. Easiest way to do it is go ahead and take and zip tie your carriage just like this up out of the way. And see, I'm going to let that fall for now. But then what I did was when you do your Buildtak sheet, you're going to want to I don't think they did it on yours anyway. They said they weren't going to do it on anybody else's. I had mine scored on each end with just a light score in the backing, 100 millimeters from each end. And I doubt they did it because I know they had a lot of problems doing mine, putting that score. So what you're going to want to do is measure 100 millimeters from each end.
Yeah, they definitely
get a nice sharp razor knife and put like next to no pressure on it whatsoever and lightly score that backing so you can leave the 100 millimeters on each end.
Okay.
And then whatever end you start with, move in another 100 millimeters and put a second score. Then what you'll do is you're going to clamp just past that. Just put a bar across and clamp to the chassis or find a place you can clamp it down against the plate. And make sure you've got to where you can peel that little center strip of 100 millimeters out, not the end one, the next one in. Basically clamp it, wrap the Buildtak all the way around and keep adjusting so you can pull it tight all the way around and it lines up straight. Hardest part is getting it straight for the full meter wrap you got to do. Just keep, pull it tight, make sure it's flush up against the bottom of the belt. Once you're sure you've got it tight all the way around and it lines up within 1/8 of an inch on either end, then pull the back end forward, pull that little strip out, very carefully squeegee it down to anchor the Buildtak to your belt, and then switch and go the other way. I loop the whole belt up over the top, start peeling the covering off a little bit at a time and just keep squeegeeing forward, working your way down the belt, then advance the belt back another 8 inches, keep squeegeeing forward and just keep advancing the belt of, the length of the plate till you make it all the way around. And then once you make it all the way around and all you have left is those two ends that are 100 millimeters left, you'll go ahead and clamp your bar down diagonally across that gap and cut the excess out. Put I have a piece of scrap belt material I use. Find something you can slide in or to protect your belt, obviously, before you start cutting it. Score it at your diagonal, and then you'll peel off and put that last little bit in. And from experience, I've made the mistake on all mine is I wanted it to be nice, down, tight, and flush when I started. And every single time I've ever done it, I've got done and it was just a little bit overlapped. Leave it that way. Leave it that way and just keep running your belt, heat it up and run your belt around a couple times and go back over it with the squeegee. After a week or so, it will probably stretch just enough that it'll settle down in there and it'll be fine. All mine now have like a small 1/8 inch gap between where I've cut it because it's stretched over time that much that it's put a gap in there. So if I'd have left it slightly overlapped, I wouldn't have as big a gap.
All right.
And then when you're done, you can 3D print guitars.
That reminds me of videos that I've watched, but anyways, stainless steel belt.
Stainless steel belt. Installing the belt. I was going to say, go back and watch the video I did on how to install a belt. Easiest way I can tell you is unbolt your side supports on both sides and undo these 4 bolts on your stepper mounts on each side.
Yeah.
And if you're lucky, you've got somewhere overhead you can hook a rope or something. And what I do, I got nice low ceiling. I just take and tie a string around this one corner And I literally unhook your stepper and your stop switch for your y-axis, obviously. And then what you do is you can actually lift this whole corner up, get it out of the way. And you'll also have to, unbolt your rollers and slide them each direction to get out of the way. But you're going to start with no belt on there, so it won't be a big deal. But if you're taking one off, you'll undo the front rollers and you'll shove it all the way back, which will let you then slide the back roller back far enough to slide it out this end. Then you can pull everything forward and pull the front roller out. So it'll be the exact opposite for you putting it on. Once you've got this lifted up out of the way, you can slide the belt in and swing it around the back. You may have to unbolt the front plate, but I think with the White Knight, you definitely do. I think with the Squire, it's small enough, you don't have to unbolt the plate. Worst case scenario, if you do, just unbolt the front plate and lay it over the back one. But you'll put the front side of the belt in, and then you'll swing it around the back, and then once you've got that done, pull the belt all the way forward, slide your front roller in, shove it all the way to the back, slide your back roller in, and then lock it all in place.
Oh, that sounds like so much work.
Yeah, it's tedious. I said, but I did one video where I showed me doing it for the White Knight. The Squire's just easier. It's smaller.
Yeah, smaller.
The White Knight's a real pain. And with mine, it was even worse because I got to be really careful not to bend it too much because it's not a seamless belt on the White Knight. It's the prototype. It was just taped together with aluminum duct tape. I'm getting scared because I'm noticing it is stretched enough at the seam. The aluminum tape is broken. The only thing holding mine together now is the Buildtak, and I'm noticing a crack starting to form in it. I figure it's only a matter of time before one day I walk down here and the belt has snapped.
Yeah.
And then I'll be buying I'll be spending the money for a seamless belt.
I've gotten, like a bunch of people who have asked, like, do you really need the stainless steel? And I'm like, yeah.
I'm curious to see what Creality uses for their belt. I know the black belt, I believe theirs is some sort of carbon fiber weave belt that they use. I've seen videos of it up close, and that's the best I can tell. It's some sort of carbon fiber. And I found it where you can buy the woven mesh edge, but I imagine it can't be as perfect where it's meshed together as where, the rest of the belt. But I said, I know people that are using just cap-on tape.
Yeah.
I think the printer belt was a stainless steel shim stock, and they were putting cap-on tape over it. I know the guy that has the what does he call it? The Mark IV. It looks like a Prusa or a Creality CR10 type printer, and he can actually run his straight up and down or drop it to different angles.
Okay.
And his is just cap on tape, from what I can tell. I don't know if it's what it's backed on. He must have something he backed it on. Obviously, probably like a clear vinyl or something. I know the guy that did the Core XY belt printer, or the the Hypercube belt printer, I think it is. He's trying vinyl, like clear vinyl sheet for his belt, and it works. But he's already noticed, it works, but he's noticing that it's stretching it funny and leaving marks in it. So belt material is definitely the hardest.
Yeah.
The hardest thing to figure out with these. And I'm there may be a better solution in stainless steel with Buildtak over it, but like, I'm sure there's going to be some people out there that are going to rather put stainless steel and put PEI on it instead, because they're going to want to print PET-G all the time. And Buildtak doesn't I don't know when I post a video for it, I printed my guitar, and the final one, the neck is split down the middle, and it's carbon fiber reinforced PET-G. When you watch the video, you'll notice I have the Buildtak sheet covered in blue painter's tape, so I don't destroy my Buildtak sheet. There was a couple of times I had to sit and babysit the painter's tape because part of it wanted to peel off and part of it wanted to stay on the print. So I'm like, okay, trying to sit there with a razor knife and trim it so it doesn't destroy the, snag and catch the peel at the end. But
all right. Next, I have the 40-pin connector.
I'm going to hit you with which end?
Let's go with both.
Okay. Have you bought a special crimper for doing it?
As like when you say special, I have like a crimping tool. That's about it.
Like, okay, to do the crimping pattern, to do it, the right way, takes a crimping tool like this. If you don't have this, fear not. Go look through your dad's toolbox and find a pair of what we call water pump pliers, plumber's pliers, that have the notch where you can drop them to different heights.
Probably doesn't even have that. My dad has very little tools.
I don't have a pair handy to show you, but basically the kind of pliers that you can drop it into a different notch to get grab onto different size pipe. Usually you can take a pair of those and drop them to the first notch and then keep switching sides and crimp a little bit at a time. But you'll basically, I don't know if I have any ribbon cable to even demonstrate, unfortunately, putting it together. Hey, I have an old ribbon cable here that I didn't use.
So much ribbon cable too for something you would use a lot.
Okay, so here's what your connector looks like.
Oh Lord.
So when you're assembling yours, you have this back piece here. It just slides through and locks in place. I'm sure you've seen it. You got all the little pins that stick out and pierce the cable. You'll just slide your cable through, try and get it as square as you can in there. You'll put the backing plate on and you just start pushing it together. Now, what works really good is, especially when you're working on this one, because it's hollow, take and stick your other connector in it. That helps make it a little harder to crimp down on and makes it easier to crimp your cable together. But I believe this crimper here was like $14 on eBay.
It'd probably just be easier to get that.
Let me see if I can find it really fast. Just do a Google search for the part number here. Part number is YTH-214. AliExpress, eBay. $10.99.
Yep. Control
C. I'll just put that in the chat. Hopefully it'll let me post it.
Yeah, it should now. And if not, I think you can access the private chat in here.
Yeah. Did it pop up?
Yeah.
YouTube? Okay. That's the part number for the crimping tool you need to do these, though. I'm sure there are better ones, but it worked and it was $10. So
in that connector you're talking about, that's this guy here, right?
That is the one that will go. That's the one that goes on your printer end. Yeah. Yeah, okay. That's the one that goes on the cable that's coming out of the side of your printer.
And then this one is
the one with the two ears. That's the one that goes on the end of your. Now, you'll have to pop those ears out to crimp it together. Easy way to, and everybody freaks out popping those ears out. Literally, just keep pushing them all, like they open up that far. If you push them further, they will just pop right out.
Oh, you mean like take them out completely?
Yeah, you have to take those off to crimp the cable on there.
Okay.
But if you just keep pushing past their locking point, they'll just pop right out the side.
Okay.
And then you can just snap them straight back down in when you're done.
Me being great, I'll manage to break those, even though it's probably physically impossible.
If you break it, I'll be very impressed because that plastic is really hard to break. But everybody freaks out because when you start pushing them all the way out, it looks like they're pushing on the last two pins in the plug. They actually just barely touch it. It actually won't move the pins. But if you keep, like right there, I just popped it out.
Oh, okay.
And then snaps right back down in place. So you just keep pushing it past and it'll pop right out the top.
And how does like the whole wire like system kind of work?
Okay. you've got your wiring coming in from your switch, and you'll have to read up on how to wire your switch. Basically, you're going to take your hot, your ground, and your common, all going to come off of here. Your hot is, this switch is, if I remember right, it's a double pulse. You're going to run your hot and your common to the switch on one side, and you're going to run them off the other side to the power supply. The ground will go straight from the plug to the power supply. So when you throw your switch, you'll be connecting the link to from your hot and your common over. If your switch came with a single pole type, you'll just run your hot to the switch.
I don't even know what kind of switch I got, but this is what we're working with.
Okay. I can't see in the back of mine here.
It looks like it's exactly the same one that you have. Like,
yeah, it looks like yours has double pole, so you'll run your hot and your common over to the switch. Your ground will run straight from the back of the plug to the power supply. That way, when you throw your switch, you'll complete the connection, and it'll run over the power supply.
Yeah.
You really only need to run the hot to the switch, but I think mine had the same thing, so I went ahead and ran them both. The main thing you want to switch is the hot. If you only run one wire to it, run your positive. Your what it's calling your line on. You didn't quite read it. You run your line. Your ground will be the one you can run straight off the plug, and the neutral, well, that's either or. But then what I do is most of the wiring I ran up this one side, like all the stepper mounts, stepper motors, and the sensors. Just tried to keep them nice and tight. I ran the power up the other side, with the exception of the wire. I had the extra wires that I ran for the Berdair and everything. So I had to run a few up this side. It fits, but it is a tight fit. You got to keep it neatly run and zip tied tight. And so what you'll do with that one is I advise taking your spool of 40 pin that you got, basically run it. That's why I had you mock it up together. Feed it through where the connector goes, run it all the way up, and stop all the way up here at the top of it. That's the length you want to cut it at.
Okay.
Go ahead and crimp your end on, feed it through, and then you can feed each wire, line it up, cut it the length, and then put your pin, pin it and everything else. Or you can, it's easier to do it that way. I did it the opposite way because I wanted to make sure I could cut it to the right length. I literally pinned the other ends first, pulled it all down, ran it, figured it out how long I needed it, and then I cut it and put the connector on, and then I had to fight and fidget to get the connector will just barely fit without the ears on it through the back way and bolt in place. But it is an hour's worth of screaming and throwing things before you finally get it perfectly squished in there and fed through. So it's easier if you do it the other way and put this connector on first, feed it that way, and very carefully cut all your wires to fit to the board.
Sounds like half of the time doing this is just routing the wire.
Oh, it's very tedious. I won't lie. This is where you can't make any mistakes. Yeah,
that's the important stuff.
Well, you can make mistakes. Surprisingly, steppers are very forgiving. Getting the wires flipped the wrong way. I've had a few times where I've wired them up. I had something. I still don't know what's up with it. When I wired the Squire up the exact same way I wired the White Knight. Same stepper motors, everything. And the ones I got for the Squire, the pairs were flopped from the ones on the White Knight. I don't know why. I don't know if they changed, if there was a revision change or something, but the pairs were flopped. I'm like, how did that happen? But I swapped the pairs and everything worked great. I don't know if the wiring was like, if the wires, because what I was always doing was splicing the ends off of the wires that came with the steppers because they plug right in. I don't know if the pairs were flopped in the connector and I didn't notice, but yeah, I had to switch the pairs on the X and Y axis steppers.
Okay. But then it's just basic, like, follow instructions, figure out for like the board, like, okay, this is motors and everything, and
yeah. No. And then, like, the only thing you'll need to do, like what I suggested you, even though I haven't done it yet, but yeah, I would, where I did the 2-pin connectors for the end stops.
Oh,
right
right.
here. I think they're right here.
Yeah.
I would go ahead and just take a third wire and run it along with it. Just don't pin it in. Have it there so you can at a later date. What I did was I put all the spares at the end. You may actually, before you start doing yours, you may want to take that the little spreadsheet that I have the pin out on. I've got spares at the bottom. You may want to go ahead and shift the colors and everything and actually take and so you got the 3 wires together on the ribbon cable instead of trying to grab the ones from the end and pull them back in with the. I keep looking, thinking I need to change the pin out and just do that. Shift everything down and put 3 for each of the end stops with 1 as a spare. So that way, if you want to go with a higher end stop instead of the little standard open builds micro switch, you can. But there's your cooling fan you were trying to mount.
Oh, is that a Noctua fan?
No, this is the 5-volt ones from the Sun-Ons from Printed Solid.
Okay. I was like, I want to make sure I have enough of those fans. I think I have 5, but I think I saw you have 6 in the builds.
Let's see. 1 for here.
1 there.
And then there's 1 on all 4 steppers. I don't know where the 6th one is.
Oh, no. I might also be losing my mind. It's very possible. I have 1 there.
And then this is the type of, these are the screws that come with the Noctua. You can quite see them.
Oh, yeah. I just got those screws and I just have to put them on. 1, 2. I think I only have 4 fans actually, and there's 5.
Yeah, there's 1. Yeah, there's 1 for the circuit board assembly. And then there's 1 on the Z, the X, the Y, and the extruder. Yeah,
that's what it is. Bill of materials has 4. That's why.
Did I mess up again? Daggone it.
It's soon on 40 millimeter fans 4.
Daggone it. Okay. Let me edit that real quick. Read me, edit.
I think everything else you don't really have to be like along the printer unless someone asks a question in here.
I'm getting the hang of, slowly getting the hang of GitHub. I'm sure there's about 1 million features of it that I'm not using though, but
yeah.
There, now it should say 5. And I'm sorry about the build plate too. It was a last minute change I made trying to get stuff to work right, and I totally missed changing the size on that.
That's fine. Yeah, it says 5 now. How do you recommend what is it, like tuning down the end for the rod for the directs? Yeah, that's the English.
Trimming down, oh, the direct drive?
Yeah.
Do you have anybody that's got a lathe?
Honestly, I do not know.
Because that's really trying to get that turned down to the 12 millimeter. Like I said, either it's turned down the end of the rod or turned down the inside of the union, unless you can find what I could not find, which was an 8 millimeter to 1/2 inch adapter. I could find 8 millimeter to 12 millimeter. I could find 1/2 inch to 1/4, but I couldn't find an 8 millimeter to 1/2 inch adapter. If you can find that, then just buy that instead and let everybody know what you found. But I searched and searched on eBay, and the 8 to 12 was the closest thing I could find.
Okay, so besides that, stupid chair.
I mean, what would probably be easier for you, since you have a friend with a drill press, would be take the metric 8 to 12 adapter.
Oh, and just drill it out.
And drill out the 12 millimeter side to 1/2 inch instead. That should work for you. I have a lathe, so I did it the hard way.
Yeah, I do not have a lathe. I don't think he does either. Next lovely thing is our firmware.
Yay. The part I'm least good at, I won't lie. Start basically once you get your firmware all updated and to the most current, once fire it up, follow all the I recommend just go straight out to Duet's website for setting up your board and go through the basic instructions for updating the firmware. Once you've got that all done, copy the config file that I put out there into the folder, because if you could actually pull the SD card out, plug it in, go through to the one folder and just copy the config G file in. And I think I put all the files for the homing and everything else out there, if I'm not mistaken. But copy the sys folder that I have out there onto your Duet and run with all those settings. I probably need to try and do a video sometime using their configuration tool, but I'll admit I did it once. I figured out how to do it for the White Knight, and ever since then I've just been copying the files. It's been 2 years since I've used their configuration tool at this point. But I mean, it's not that hard. You're going to set it up as a standard Core XY. Everything gets fooled in the slicing program, not the firmware. Most people think the firmware is something special for a belt. It's really not.
Yeah.
The standard Core XY, where it gets crazy, hinky, funky, is in the slicer, and it's all basically for aesthetics and letting your brain wrap around the fact that you can print an infinite Z, which the fun argument everybody has is, no, the horizontal axis is Y. And I'm like, I have to explain to people all the time. It's like, okay, this here is a D-Bot Core XY printer, and it's laid at a 45.
Yeah.
If this was a regular printer, this would be your X and your Y axis, and this is your Z. The only difference with this one is it's tilted on a 45. So this is still your X and Y, and that is Z.
Oh, Joel was here.
Oh, sorry, Joel. I'm sure we were really exciting, too. Thanks for stopping in. He's probably already long gone, but
That was only a minute ago.
But yeah, in the slicing software in Black Belt Cura anyway, what they did was they call this Y when you set up your slicing software. You're going to set your infinite axis as Y in Black Belt Cura, and this is X and Z. Well, and then what it does is so that way it shows your build plate going off infinitely into the distance instead of straight down through the floor.
Okay.
And then what it does when it slices it transposes all Y and Z axis commands. It just flips them. And it's done. The only reason that's done is so when you lay all your parts on the build platform in Cura, it's extending off in the distance just like the belt would, not going straight through the floor out of sight. It's just so it looks the same. The only way to trick the Cura into doing that was to say that the belt is Y for the purpose of display, but once it slices it, it's Z.
Okay.
That it threw me when I built the first one of these. I looked in on Black Belts and I brought up their profile of their printer and saw that the infinite axis was Y. So when I originally programmed it in Duet, I said it was a Core XZ printer instead of a Core XY. And I started a print and it's just sitting there floating in the middle. I couldn't get it to come down to the belt to save my life. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? And I went and I looked at the G code and realized that all the movements for the belt were on the Z axis. I'm like, and then I realized, yeah, they're flopping it in the software for visual aesthetics only.
That's definitely something no one would realize. Would you say you've changed anything about the White Knight since like your first one that you created? Like your first quote unquote production machine?
The only thing I've really changed, well, there's two things I've changed. and it's all part of the same upgrade. Is on the original White Knight, I was using a Creality style dual blower fan cooling setup. And when I went to the Squire, I switched over to the Berdair system, trying to find a better cooling because I wasn't getting enough cooling with the Creality fans. And the other thing I've done is I switched, because on the White Knight I had that huge 400 by 400. If you've ever tried to do a big Bowden tube run, pressure feedback becomes exponentially harder to deal with the further you're trying to travel. Trying to prevent it from every time it would do a high speed move from the left side to right side, I would have this huge blob when it tried to do the revert, it'd retract and then it would push back and I would get this huge blob because it moved that much. I think that was half the reasons I was having the fails with the Thanos blade, was because I was getting these blobs in places too. So I switched it over to the direct drive system that the Squire has.
Oh, okay.
So that's all kind of one upgrade there. I eliminated the long Bowden run and moved everything on to the hot end. It went against everything in my instinct of building a printer because, moving mass is harder to slow down. So the more mass you have on the hot end, obviously you're going to have to print a little slower.
Yeah, the more
you can make that hot end light, then it can fly all over the place. So I had to take the trade-off for print quality for adding a little bit of mass to the hot end carriage. But I went with a pancake stepper, so I didn't add a ton of weight to it.
Yeah. So,
but it was definitely worth the trade-off. The improvement in performance. As I was telling you before the stream, I've had a ton of fails printing when I was printing the Thanos blade. What was a 4 kilo print took almost 10 kilos to print with all the failures I had figuring out what was going on. Probably wasn't a good idea to make my first big print a 8-foot long Thanos blade, either, but you learn from failure, right?
Yeah.
But the quality improvements by switching to direct drive has been well worth the added weight to the hot end carriage. The other thing I did was, and I talked about it on the interview with Joel, was, at encouragement from a few people in the community, I got rid of the flanged bearings and switched to the cog, pulleys and smooth pulleys accordingly, so they're not adding noise by running tooth belts over smooth pulleys. Other than that, moving the control board from outside of the printer into an external case, just so if you do want to put it in an enclosure, that was just, people said, hey, it'd be nice if we could put it in an enclosure. And, anytime you can keep the electronics separate makes that more
something
reliable.
Simple like that.
And it cut down on the amount of, as you've been able to experience, it cut down on the amount of extrusion cutting you need to do.
Yeah.
A couple of notches is a whole lot easier than cutting 2 big holes that have to be this exact size and this exact placement. And I've built chassis for 3 of those White Knights. I did mine, Midnight Giants, and I did a prototype for printed solid for what was supposed to be for helping them design kits. Well, let's not even go into why they're not doing it, but sorry, everybody, no kits. And I don't ever want to cut those holes manually again. Yeah. I did the first 2, man. I did one with a jigsaw, one with one of those plunge cutters. And then when I did the one for printed solid, I broke down and I clamped it all down on my tabletop mill and did it that way. And cutting through extrusion has this nasty tendency to want to chatter if you go too fast. It took me just as...
Your mic just dropped out.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. Batteries just died on my lavalier. So turn the snowball on so it won't sound quite as good.
That's fine. I'm literally running off of my webcam's audio.
But where was I? What was I saying when the mic dropped out?
The cutting with the noise of the...
Yeah. It took me just as long with the mill to cut it out, but I got a much better result. But I had to go literally like 200ths at a time, because if I went any faster than that, it would just chatter and jump all over the place. So I just had to keep, it was like 3D printing with filament. I was like, but cutting that way, one little tiny layer at a time the whole way down through the extrusion, or it would chase and run off on me. So I understand why manufacturers don't want to mill extrusion. I'm curious. I've finished up my prototype framework for the Prusa belt. And I sent all the files to Jason with LDO motors, because he does all the extrusion for the bear kits, and he's going to do me a custom set of extrusion with all the openings cut and everything else. And I'm curious to see how it turns out and how much they complain about doing it, because I'm asking them to mill out C-channel. So
oh, Lord.
It should be interesting. But hopefully if it goes well, it should make a nice kit for people, hopefully. So,
all right, we got, what is this? 2 more things. Things to know before starting your first print.
Things to know before starting your first print. Make sure you go through all your bed leveling. You know, I recommend trying to shim the nozzle about 0.2 millimeter. You know, like I was telling you before the stream, if you've got one of those Creality 0.2 millimeter shims, great. If not, go buy yourself a gap gauge kit and find a 0.2 millimeter shim. Get it level all the way across. The hardest part, and I wish I could explain it better, but I swear I relearn every time I re-level my carriage. It's a little bit of give and take. You're going to tighten the screws on one side and lower on the other until you get it set. And you're going to get, at one point, you're going to go, man, I've got it as far as I can go this way. So then it's like, okay, shift it a little bit and reset your height until you get it level all the way across. Once you get it leveled, then dial back in your set screw for your Y-axis end stop. I said, unfortunately, working in such a small area, you'll probably think you got it set right, and then you realize you can't bring the one end down any further, so you have to drop the other side, and you have to readjust your Y end stop screw again. Once you've got it homing right and level all the way across, then you've got the 2 physical end stops that you put in each of the stepper mounts. You're going to want to back them out to where they're 0.2 millimeter away from your Y-axis brackets, so that if it does skip, and like as I said, when I had all the failures on the printing the Thanos blade, it would go along and print and something would curl. It would do a fast move. It would catch a curl or an overhang, and it would ricochet, because it would come across, hit it, and then it would ricochet and it would deflect it straight down to the belt. By putting those 2 physical end stops, you're making sure that when it slams down and hits the belt, it's actually going to hit those 2 physical end stops, and it'll be basically right at belt level. So it might put a slight scorch mark in your belt, but better than gouging and tearing. The Midnight Giant learned the hard way, and he's the reason we put those in, was he had one where it skipped and it embedded itself and took a chunk like this out of his Buildtak sheet.
Oh, God.
Since we've put those in, we haven't had that issue again. If by some chance you do end up with a skipping issue and it forms a big blob on your Buildtak sheet, there's the other mistake Midnight Giant made. Do not go, oh, I'll just advance my belt down until it gets to the roller and it'll just peel that right off. If it sits and it gets stuck in a corner for whatever reason and just extrudes a big blob, it will bond so hard when it comes down to the end, it will more than likely rip the Buildtak sheet instead of releasing from it. So take your time, get a razor knife out or a razor blade and work underneath it, and get where you can get a putty knife under it and slowly work it off of the Buildtak sheet. Don't just try and pop it off quick. Had he advanced it to the roller and let it just get to the edge and stop, it might have even slowly released itself off. But he just hit belt advance and it got to the end and it was just trucking right along, and path of least resistance the Buildtak gave before the print let go. Let's see. Trying to think. That's the hardest part. Once you get it set up and working, and I said the nice thing now, and I didn't have this advantage when I first started doing mine. You'll go to do that first print and depending on how reliable your end stop switches are, mine don't always seem to home in the same place. And I don't know, when I put them in brand new, they always home in the same place. The more I print, I don't know if dust gets in the switch, I get to where it starts to what I call phantom home. When you first start homing, you'll hear it come down and you'll hear that micro switch trip, and it'll trip, and then it goes up and comes back, and you hear it trip again. I watch mine now and come over, it comes down, and it just barely touches that metal and turns and goes the other direction. I'm like, it didn't even move the switch. And it'll phantom home for whatever reason, and it homes higher sometimes than others. Now, thanks to RepRap and Marlin creating baby stepping on all axis, if you program in a macro for baby stepping the y axis, if you watch it start to print and it's not quite low enough, you can just baby step it down and let it roll. The only bad thing is, you got to be there every time a print starts to make sure you've got that correct. It's like any other printer. You got to make sure that first layer starts right. Unfortunately for ours, first layer is every layer. So you got to sit there and watch it. Once you're sure it's got good contact all the way across your print width, then you're good to go. When you're doing really big prints, and it sucks if it starts off at a 40, at a long diagonal, you got to sit there and babysit it for a while, making sure you've got good. I've started prints and realized, oh, look, it's not quite making adhesion all the way on the far center. Okay, drop it down, half of a, micron or whatever, and it's unnoticeable on the print itself. When you look at the surface, when you're baby stepping it out 0.05 millimeters at a time, but
yeah.
And start with small stuff first, obviously, and work your way up to the big stuff. Like anything else, print your benchy first, your layers a lot second, then try and print the sword that I put out there on the internet.
All right, this is probably a sore subject, but
yeah, what happened to the kits? I wish I had all the details of it, but the short story is, from what I was told by Printed Solid, their patent lawyers found and if Bill Steele's watching this, I'm sure he's going to comment, but they found enough questionable patents out there that the design skirts along the edge of, that they felt it wasn't safe to produce kits that somebody might not come back and say you're infringing on their patent. And they just elected not to produce the kits because, Printed Solid, they're one of the bigger names in 3D printing, but they're not some huge multi-million-dollar company like Stratasys is. Most companies that get hit with patent suits, they don't lose the patent suit. They go broke fighting the patent suit. So if you're the bigger company, you don't have to win it. You just have to draw it out long enough to bankrupt the other guy, and then you won anyway. And I won't, put anything against Printed Solid for protecting the business first. They're my favorite company. I want them to stay open. If they were to produce my kits and then get sued for patent and get shut down, I'd hate the fact that my kit cost Printed Solid the company. So,
and even like if it wasn't kits, like even the small things or like the harder to source components, like even that wasn't able to happen.
I think right now the problem is there just wasn't a big enough demand for it, because you got to understand, it's like for like the nozzles. For them to produce the nozzles, they've got to do at least like I had when I did my one of the manufacturers made me a bunch of test nozzles, and he gave me like 10 sets that went from 0.4 all the way to 1.2. He made 10 sets because he had to do a minimum production run even for a prototype. And I know he kept some too, but he told me typically a run of nozzles per size is 500. For you to get it to where it's, people will pay $12 for a nozzle. Most people won't pay $30 or $40 for a nozzle, or $100 like an Olsen Ruby or something like that.
Yeah.
Also, when I got to pay $40 for a plain brass nozzle because you're only going to do a production run of 100, no one's going to pay that. You got to make enough to make it worthwhile. Unfortunately, there's not enough belt printers out there to where there's a high enough demand yet for custom nozzles and custom milled hot ends. And E3D was great to make that one where they did the milled beveled edge for me and everything. But, Okay, yeah, that's saving someone spending half an hour with a file filing off the corner of the hot end. Which is why I did like the fact that I gave Slice Engineering a hard time. Their initial run of Mosquito hot ends had the 45-degree bevel on the back, which is why I used it on the White Knight. Their second run of Mosquito hot ends, the bevel looked nice. It made it look uniform. Well, we don't need that. They took it off. And I was like, guys, I'm actually using that bevel. It's advantageous for me. It keeps, it gives me a little bit more clearance between the heat block and the belt. And that heat, when I was first doing the prints, it was so close to the belt. Taller nozzle makes it a little bit better. But it's possible to get the heat block so close to the belt, you can watch the heat warp the belt.
Wow.
If you're going really slow for the first layer, the heat radiating off the hot end will actually make a bubble form just below it as it goes across the belt. And I was able to get one of the prototype socks they made for the Mosquito. That just having that sock did wonders for heat transfer to the belt, cuts it way down. Unfortunately, they're still trying to get all the bugs worked out on production of those socks. I keep encouraging them to continue working on that project, but the biggest problem right now is there's not enough belt printers out there, so no one wants to produce custom parts for them yet. And I know Creality had mixed reviews with what people think of Creality, but I really hope that their belt printer succeeds because, I saw something somewhere that something like 50% of printers in all homes are Creality printers.
Wow.
The other 50% is Prusa and then all the onesie-twosies of all the lesser name brands. But yeah, Creality has flooded the market with all these inexpensive printers that, like 50% of all home printers now are Creality printers. So if they make a belt printer, belt printers could start becoming a home name. I don't know what the price point's going to be on theirs yet. I don't even think they know what the price point's going to be yet. I'd say if they manage to keep it under $2,000, it's going to make it a realistic printer for people. I'm hoping they can get it closer to the $1,500 and less, but that's who knows. But if they can put out a good working belt printer, I think that's going to do a lot for all the small parts, and eventually, who knows, it might help my kit come back into being a reality at some point. But because once there's a company producing them like crazy, the chances of somebody else coming out and, if Printed Solid starts producing my kit and makes it makes 100 of them, and Creality's already pumped out 1,000, I'm thinking Stratus is going to go after Creality way before they ever go after Printed Solid. So,
have you seen the heat block on the Prusa Mini?
I have not.
Okay, let me grab it. This printer is so convenient, but let me grab the thing here. So this is the hot end on it, the heat block.
I'm not seeing it. Okay. Okay, there you go. Yeah, that taper would probably work pretty good.
I was saying because it could work.
I have to wonder, knowing Joseph, if he's planning something. But yeah, that would work really good, because I think that would be enough taper to keep you from. Because my question is, does the bottom end of that taper, does it end pretty much at the back edge of the nozzle?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, that's where it needs. That's the important thing, is basically where the nozzle, the outer edge of the nozzle ends. You can't have any of the heat block extending past it, because if you do your nice long 45 degree or steeper taper, you just need to make sure you don't have anything sticking out beyond that. The only problem is if you look at the standard E3D nozzle, that's why you can't use those, because they got that tiny little point, and then it goes straight out for 2 millimeters. and that hex shape will gouge into the belt before that tiny little point touches the belt.
Yeah. So I was saying, like, it could work for some people, but you have to have a mini to get access to that.
Oh, they're not selling those individually yet?
No.
You can't buy the parts?
So, like, you only has parts.
Yeah, so we need to go onto the website, onto the web, and we need to go, hey, Joseph, how about selling those heat blocks and the hot ends as parts on your website for people building White Knight printers?
Because, like, even he's selling it, I think, at like $18 for that heat block.
Yeah. So that would be a solution. Instead of having to file one down, you could buy that hot end kit and mount it. Does it still use the standard E3D type mount?
I know it's using the standard E3D like V6 nozzles. It's definitely a different like heat break because their heat break is mounting like directly into a heat sink.
Okay.
Which is like part of the fan. So like I'm pretty sure it's still like M6 and everything and you can get it to work.
Well, the question is at the top, how is it mounting? Are they still using the E3D style?
No, it's like their own thing here. So
okay. So someone would have to make a new design for the mount. Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, so it bolts right in. Okay, wow. Interesting. I'm sure that could be rigged to work with my design, but someone would have to make a whole new hot end mount for it.
Yeah, even like I was saying, like just buy the heat block.
Yeah.
Like if you just buy that block, you could pretty much.
Yeah, from what I could see, it looked like it still had the same M6 threading on the other end of the heat.
Yeah.
Where it's scrolling the heat break. So yeah, that would work.
Oh, they're running 3 weeks just for shipping spare parts because of all of this.
Oh, I bet. I was like, I went and looked at my Amazon wish list. I was going to buy a few things off of it. 90% of my wish list right now says not available. Don't know when it'll be back in stock. And I'm assuming it's everything that was shipping from China. Everything that was shipping from China or from Europe. Like I had a Firmware on that list. Well, we know they're not making the Firmwares right now. They don't know when they're going to get their parts. So I'm like, at this point, I'm like, well, I guess I'm not sure. I had one of the guys that built a White Knight, he started experimenting with, and he put a thin magnet sheet on the heat bed.
Oh, okay.
Because it is stainless steel, which shouldn't be magnetic, but because it's tempered stainless, it makes it a low nickel content. You can actually stick magnets to that stainless steel belt. Not much. They won't adhere really great, but he took a thin adhesive back magnet sheet like you can buy at Walmart for making refrigerator magnets.
Yeah.
He stuck that on there and then shimmed the back plate to match it, and it's preventing the bubbling. It's keeping the belt down tight against the bed. I haven't had a chance to try it myself, but he said he's having really great results with it. So it's something I want to try too, and then I'm probably going to make that an added recommendation is to just stick a magnetic sheet across the top of that to help keep your belt from bubbling when it heats up. And if that works, that's great. Then you don't have to put like you've seen some of my videos where I put like piece of extrusion down as runners beside the print just to kind of help keep the belt from curling and moving. You wouldn't need that if the magnet works well. I had one of my items on Amazon wish list was a roll of magnetic sheet, 0.3 millimeters thick. Can't find it anywhere now with the big roll with adhesive backing. All I can find is 8x10 sheets, and it's because it's the stuff that Walmart stocks.
Yeah.
All the stuff that was long rolls was coming out of China, and nothing's coming out of China.
Nothing at all. That's what I was afraid of. Like everyone's like contacting Prusa, like, "Oh, are you still able to deliver stuff?" And
everything is. We have no idea when. I was glad to see the email from Slice saying that they were finally getting back to production of the Copperheads.
Yeah, I saw that email today. I was like, "Ooh, good to know." They're going through QC, and everything with it.
Which means the medical industry must finally be getting caught up.
Yeah. I'm hoping to. I don't even know why I backed that, but I'm gonna have a slice hot end.
Yep. I backed it because I wanted to support them, though they took away the feature I like the most.
What
But I wanted to try it and wanted to support it. The one-handed nozzle change is the best thing invented since, in my opinion, it's probably one of the best inventions to 3D printing since it started, in the realm of hot ends. Being able to, and I know Tinkers would back me probably 100% on that statement because he's converting all his Pruses to mosquito hot ends because he hates the fact that if you want to do a nozzle change, especially on the Prusa, you have to disassemble half of the hot end assembly to get to the hot end to do it. If you put the mosquito hot end in there, one hand, heat it up, crank out the old nozzle, crank the new one in, and you're done. I love that on the White Knight. That's the only thing I don't like about my Squire, that I went with the E3D setup because, I've got to get a wrench out and hold the hot end in place and crank my nozzle out, crank a new one in. And it would be nice if if some other companies would figure out other ways to make it, one-handed without stealing Slice's design. There's got to be other ways to do it.
I was thinking about going with a Slice even for this in general anyway, so I could have like the ability just to have one.
I'm surprised no one's done one. I mean, you'd have to have a very tight tolerance. But I've seen print milling work done out of China. I've ever seen them where they do the big plates and they do like a wave curve design, and they set the pieces together and it slides, and when it finally hits its final position, you can't see the seam in the two milled pieces. If they made the heat break to where it was just, and I think they do it, I think the Creality hot ends do it, where it just slides in, and then I know it does it on the heat sink side, where it just slides in, and then it's a set screw that locks it in place.
Oh, okay, yeah.
If you did a notched heat break that slid into the heat block, it was tabbed on each side, and it had a set screw on the side that locked it in place, I would think that would work. The only problem is that heat break's so delicate. That's why Slice does the 4 little tubes, because if you were to try and crank a nozzle loose on just that heat break, you'd probably twist or break the heat break. You still need those support tubes on the outside. But if you did some design where you had 2 little tabs that came down the side or whatever that supported it somehow, I don't know. There's got to be some other way to do it, though.
I can't count the number of heat breaks I've broken in half.
I'm going to jinx myself right here. Knock on wood. I have yet to break one.
It's always when I get a horrible, horrible clog.
Now, I have ruined the heat break tube on a mosquito, because they've got that coating on the inside. Yeah. I had a really bad jam once. I got fed up trying to clean it out with Pooch's nice little the acupuncture needles, and I got fed up and I pulled out. I've got 1.75 millimeter drill bits. I ran a 1.75 millimeter drill bit through there when it was warm, and I think I nicked that coating and ruined it. But
yeah.
I've also found out, and I've had other people say it, that if you have your tension too high on a Buildtak extruder, if you get a jam, people have said they've seen the Buildtak literally accordion that tube on the mosquito, because it pushes so hard, it'll make it either bend, kink, or like accordion down a couple little ripples, because it just pushes so hard.
I've seen my printers with Buildtak extruders, literally the spool gets jammed and the printer will pull itself off of a table.
Yeah, I had it was funny too, because I got lucky. I caught it. I was literally sitting on a stream or doing a filming and recording something, and I had the printer running, and it was when I was printing the Thanos blade. I had set the big 10K spool on the floor on a double roller. And I look out of the corner of my eye and I see something move, because the White Knight's in that big wheeled cart. Out of the corner of my eye on the camera, I see the cart moving. The spool, it wasn't dragging the 10K spool. There wasn't enough resistance. it was literally pulling. I had like the spool set a few feet away from it. It was literally pulling the White Knight in the cart toward the spool. It had wrapped around, or it was the first one that I had a bar through the center instead, and the spool had unwrapped out and unraveled and wrapped around the side of the pipe. So it was dragging itself back to the spool, which is why I switched. That is why I switched to the double roller. The only problem with the double roller is they don't seem to, especially with a 10K spool, it's hard to get good rollers that'll roll smoothly at that size. What I told one of the people I was talking to online when IC3D sent him a big 10K spool of PET G for printing visors, and I told him, make yourself a center hub for that spool, put it on a 1/2-inch shaft, and do it free spinning from the center. I said, but once you do that, you need to make yourself a prize ticker. If you think of, everybody's watched Price is Right when they spin the big wheel and it's got the little tab that ting, 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 ting. If you look on the side of a 10K spool, it's got little ribs in it, like a hands of a clock. You can put one of those little prize tickers in the side of the wheel so that it will only move so far before it stops on it. That way you don't have it where it pulls and then it spins 5 times and unravels. But so how many people? Is there anybody in the stream, or is it still just us?
It says 4.
All these non-talkative people. I see how it is. It's okay, everybody. You can type in the chat. We'll allow it.
Oh, there we go.
Hey, Mike. One person brave enough to talk. I'm betting Chris Riley's still hiding, just lurking in there, not saying anything like Joel was the whole time. Didn't say anything till he left, I like calling Joel out on that, though. I always pick on him. Probably not good. I keep picking on the biggest name in 3D printing,
I think I've met him twice in person. Both are at New York Maker Faire, and that hasn't happened since.
I picked on him. I caught him briefly on it on the first video at Murph because we did the sneak peek of the White Knight at Printed Solid, and the whole internet blew up over it because I didn't know Chris and Matt were live streaming it.
Oh.
I don't know if anybody saw. You can almost notice a shocked look on my face when Matt goes, "Hey, Karl, we've got questions from the chat," and I'm like, "From what?" I'm like, I didn't know he was live. I thought he was just recording. I didn't know he was live streaming. And then, it caught Joel's attention. Then he came and found me at Murph. Well, I'd met Joel 3 times before that too. And I'd met him 2 times before. I'd met him at Murph the year before, and I had met him at New York Maker Faire. I was walking around with Midnight Giant and Amy Double D at New York Maker Faire. And I had gotten a little bit ahead of him. I walked in up, saw him, walked up, introduced myself to him. He said, nice. Yeah. He goes, I recognize the beard. I know who you are. And then walked right past me to talk to Mike and Amy. And I'm like, I just got snubbed. What the heck? And then he comes up to me at Murphy. He goes, yeah. I said, well, I had to do something to get your attention. So I built a belt printer. Apparently it worked, But Joel's a great guy. It's like I'm sure he's got so many people walking up to him. After a while, it gets hard not to get to the people you want to talk to.
Yeah.
But excuse me.
So it's probably very different, designing a belt printer than it is for a standard, kind of printer, I guess.
I would say 50% of it's different.
Did you have anything to really go off of, or was it just trial and error?
Real quick, I saw what's happening with Murph. We have no idea.
No one.
It's still on hold. They're still hoping that laws lift and everybody's allowed to go out and play together again sometime soon. I would imagine, and this is pure speculation on my part, but I would imagine if we get into July and it still hasn't happened, I'd like to think they'd still do Murph, but at the same point, they've got to think of if they do it too close to Earth, does it really help either event at that point? but that's speculation on my point. I would say if we get into August and they haven't had Murph yet, I'm betting we're not going to see it this year. But because if they hold it later than that, then I'm afraid you're going to see the whole community get upset, because then it's going to look like a Murph-Earth war for this year, and I don't want to see that happen. So, but your question again, I'm sorry. I saw his thing and
do you have like any background or like any like idea going into building the machine?
I had building it. I said this during the morning. It's like I had seen a video or two of the black belt printing. That's where I saw hey Llama. That's where I had seen a belt printer in general, where I preached it to Midnight Giant. He was doing all those big prints. I said, "You need a belt printer." And he said, "Yeah, I don't have $10,000." And I kept talking trash about it. Like, well, it can't be that hard to build one. He said, "Well, sounds like you just volunteered." So I did a little bit more research. I had seen that Mark IV printer, the one that can be tilted and can print straight up and down, or it can print at angles. I'd seen a few videos of other printers, but hadn't really researched much more than that. And I'm like, okay, I seen what I need to see. And then I started researching. I decided I love the idea of a D-bot or a Core XY, because you don't have a moving motor on the X-axis going back and forth, or the Y-axis, depending on how you set it up. Everything's out on the outside. The only thing you got to worry about is what you do for your extruder. So you've got less moving mass. So I already decided at that point I was going to do it, D-bot or Core XY style. And then I just needed to figure out what I was going to do the belt with. And I had talked with Kayla a bunch of times about using Buildtak, and she made a mistake of telling me other companies that tried it, it can't be done. And I'm like, don't tell me it can't be done. They're just not doing it right, because it looks like it's a perfect belt material. But it's plastic. It's going to stretch. They need to back it. I'll bet money everybody tried to do it before me didn't back it. I'll bet you they just tried to figure out how to stick it together, and it kept stretching and pulling apart. But it's the only difference between a belt printer and other printers. Yeah, you drop it on the 45. The hard part is figuring out how to meet, is getting it to meet the belt, and what you're going to make your belt out of, how you're going to advance your belt. I'm still looking at on some of mine. I'm going to have to start taking the time to play with different stepper motors and figure out, because I still have issues every once in a while with the Squire, even with my stepper motor. If I try to advance too fast, it'll skip. It's one of the complaints I had, or one of my suggestions, I should say, that I had to Duet. Nowhere in the Duet settings can you adjust your movement speed. If you just go into move and you say move X, move Y, there's nowhere where you can set the speed that it moves that at. It takes it from your max acceleration speed, I think, or whatever in your standard config G settings. So if you want fast movement, fast advance of your belt when it moves 0.2, guess what? If you try to do a move, it wants to advance that fast for a move too, which is insane speed to move that big a heavy a belt. So when you go to move it that fast, it tends to strip or skip the gears instead, which is why I try to program in macros for moving the belt, so I can tell it to go real slow at like 1500 instead of 5000. And I said it'd be really nice if somewhere in the config you could set your movement speeds as well for the menu. So I don't know if they've done it yet. Hopefully at some point they get around to adding a function where you can set your movement speeds in the GUI. Because it'd be nice to be able to tone the belt speed way back. But I need to try and see if switching to a 10-to-1 instead of a 5-to-1 makes any difference, or if going with the real big beefy direct drive, because like we've got the standard steppers that we bought. They make one that's like a third larger that's still a NEMA 17.
Oh, the super whopper motor?
The super high torque or whatever, but it's still a 1-to-1 ratio. I might try putting one of those on there, because I don't know if it's the stepper itself skipping, just not enough power to turn it, or if it's the gears in the gear reduction skipping. So I may try doing one with that high torque direct drive and see if that makes a difference.
Yeah.
It's all stuff. It's stuff I'm going to experiment with on the Prusa belt, because I need to be able to move that belt fast back and forth without it skipping.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be my Y-axis on the Prusa belt. So I'm going to have to experiment with a bunch of different steppers and figure out what the best solution is going to be for being able to power that belt and have it not skip. I really wanted to do, and if anybody sees this video later and knows how to do it, I'm still looking for someone to tell me how to do it. I want to create a different kind of stepper for that Prusa belt. I want to create what I'm calling a Siamese stepper, where you have two steppers, but each stepper is only in charge of running one direction, all run off of one stepper driver. That way, because you can do it with a duet and do two separate stepper drivers and tell it, yeah, drive this stepper this direction, drive this stepper this direction, and it will make it work like what I want. But if someone wants to convert a Prusa to a belt printer, like I'm trying to make this kit for, you've only got that one driver to run the Y-axis. If they can figure out a way to split the signals and make it to where, yeah, if you want to drive forward, it runs the front stepper. If you want to drive backward, it runs the back stepper. And someone asks, why do I want to do that? Well, if you're always pulling the belt and not pushing it, there's no chance of getting a bubble in the belt. It's always going to be tight being pulled that way and tight being pulled that way, as opposed to if you're going to run it back and forth off of one stepper, then you got to have that belt pulled really tight so there's no slacking in anywhere, so that it's always technically still pulling it. Whether it's pulling it from the top or the bottom is the question.
LDO motors now.
Hmm?
Just to scream at LDO motors. Just.
Oh, I told Jason my suggestion. He's sent it to the technical people. I haven't heard an answer back.
He just.
I even messaged Paul. I can never pronounce his name right. The guy that made the TMET, the revolving medical grade 5-head.
Oh yeah.
It was at the same reveal when I revealed the White Knight. I said I can't say his name right. I'm not even going to try and butcher it. He's one of the smartest people I know, and he found a way to kind of do it, but it won't work in micro-stepping. Like if you go 16x micro-stepping, it won't work for that. It'll, like if you did just standard stepping, it would work, but the minute you try to do high speed and all the it won't quite cut it.
All right. There's not really anyone here for anyone.
You still in here, Llama?
Any outstanding questions before we close out? Anything you'd like to add?
I think I've covered everything I can think of right now. I'm sure at some point you're going to get another week or two into the build and go, crap, I should ask Karl this, I should ask Karl that. We can do this again. When I would say when you get ready to start doing your wiring for your chassis, if
well, that's going to be
here, I'll do this again for you just so you have it. You can.
That's just going to be a nightmare.
You can freeze frame it or whatever, and
yeah.
But yeah, that's. As I said, the wiring is be prepared to spend a whole day just doing the circuit board side of the wiring, and another day doing the printer side,
and crimping everything.
Don't rush. Take your time, because you're going to be crimping and soldering and. You're lucky. You're young and your eyes still work good. After about an hour and a half of squinting through my readers, I have to throw them down on the ground and walk away and wait for my eyes to decide to work right again. I got to the point I realized I was crimping wires, and I'm starting, right here like this with my readers on, no problem. And then 2 hours later working, I'm holding them out here trying to see if I've got it crimped right, because that's the only place it'll come in focus. And then after a while you get fed up, like, no, I want to keep going. I want to keep going. So I pull out. I pull out these.
Oh Lord!
The medical magnifiers with the 3.0 magnifying lens instead of the 1.75. It's like, you're getting old when you got to buy magnifiers that have stages that you can keep switching the longer you go.
that for me would just be a sign like, maybe I should take a break.
Well, for the Squire, I didn't really have that choice.
Yeah.
If you remember, I finished that Squire like 2 days before Earth last year. Everything kept showing up last minute. It was not fun.
Yeah.
I ordered everything way in advance, and everything got, Buildtak got delayed, and I literally didn't get the stainless steel belt until the Tuesday before. So I was doing I had the Buildtak a week before it, and the stainless steel belt showed up Tuesday before Earth started. So literally 2 days before Earth, I would have put the belt on with the Rapid Tack and done it, because you can do the spray-on version with the Rapid Tack, but you got to do it just a build plate size at a time. Wait 24 hours, do the next bit, wait 24 hours, and it's just not practical. It take you a week to do it. But the nice thing is you have plenty of time to shift, and if you do it that way, you can keep shifting that first foot and make sure it's on there straight. As opposed to if you do it dry, if you don't get it right at the beginning, then you're kind of screwed for the rest of the application. But I had no choice. That's where I put the belt on dry. I didn't have any choice. I didn't have the days to do it. I had to put it on dry. And it's actually small enough. I would say it's more feasible than trying to do the White Knight dry. I still don't think I would ever try to do the White Knight as a dry application, because it's just 2 meters long. Trying to get that perfectly straight, is really hard. So the 1 meter is realistic.
Yeah, even like the belts, they have a 7-week lead time. Like you can't just you gotta have it scheduled.
Yeah. That's why I went ahead. That's why I've already ordered the extrusion for the Prusa belt. And the first thing I'll do once I get it, I'll get the frame set up. I'm going to get my rollers figured out, and I'm going to take my shim stock, and I'm going to do a real quick test and figure out my size and make sure everything works. And as soon as I'm sure it's going to work, I'm going to place my order with Belt Technologies for my seamless belt for it, because I'll need to have that ordered 2 months in advance to be sure I'm going to have it in time to put it together. And I'll start talking, I'll start working on the design for the graphics on the Buildtak sheet and get with them and say, okay, here's what I want this time. And
yeah, when I was getting the Buildtak sheet, they're like, oh yeah, we can only do it with the graphics. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. I don't care. That's fine.
Really? They told you they could only do it with the graphic?
Yeah, one person asked for the White Knight one. They're like, can I get it without the graphic? And they're like, yeah, we're going to have to charge you like an extra $60 for that. And the guy's like, no.
Huh. I think probably because they were just doing a production, it's either or with or without. Usually, because I've seen a lot of people have gotten the White Knight ones and there's no graphic on them.
Yeah. Probably because I ordered 7.
Yeah. There's probably, for them, let's just keep going with instead of 2 separate runs, probably is what it turned out to be.
They ended up doing, I think it was like a silhouette of it. So it had no coloring. It was like black and white.
Huh. That's weird. I'm kind of glad they're still putting it out with the logo on, just because that's just good advertising for me. Yeah. But I didn't expect them to keep producing it with the logo. I figured they'd all come out as plain black.
Yeah, no, I actually asked them, like, can I get mine with the logo? Like, I want it there.
Yeah. The logo I want to do for the Prusa belt, unfortunately, I'm going to have to email, Joseph and make sure he's all right with it. Because I'm thinking what I want to do is I want to take his Joseph Prusa face. I want to cut it in half, and I want it to be half the Prusa face, half the White Knight. And then I want to take a big bear claw behind it, like the silhouette of a bear claw. Yeah. So it'd be the Prusa belt, the Prusa, or the Prusa bear belt or whatever. But it'd be like all 3 logos kind of mashed together into one on it. But since I'm going to put like half of his logo, I'm going to have, if he'll let me do that, if he's like, no, I don't want you to do that, then I won't. But
he seems like a pretty chill guy.
I imagine it'll just be but it's his trademark logo. Yeah. I don't use half of his logo without his permission. So if he's all right with it, then I'll slap a half of a Joseph face over, with half of a White Knight logo and figure out a good way to make the two merge together. That or put his face inside the White Knight, something.
Yeah. That actually, I feel like if that would be more, it wouldn't be so like there. It would just be like.
Yeah, be like instead of the Sir Walters a lot, it'd be like the Sir Prusas a lot. But who knows? I said that's the last thing on my list is artwork for the belt, unfortunately. So I got to get everything else working right first.
So your idea with that is to have like the belt be the Y-axis and just like
the Prusa belt will not be an infinite printer.
Okay.
It will be and the reason why I'm doing it is and I'm doing the same thing. It's like all I'm doing is creating the design and I'm going to publish the research because this one is way more on top of what the patent is out there that Stratasys has. There's still some very fine lines as to whether I'm encroaching on their patent, but I'm going to stick with what I know is safe. As long as I don't profit from my designs or sell my designs, if all I'm doing is research and publishing my research, that's not against the patent. Whether anybody makes a kit from what I do that people could add a belt to a Prusa, great. I hope people do, but I won't sell it. I'm never going to get rich doing my designs like I'm doing because there's too many patents out there for everything now. And
yeah,
I'll be honest, and I'll say this in public. I don't agree with the Stratasys patent to begin with because they patented it. They did concept art and patented it, but they didn't actually produce. And they're not selling a belt printer. They're
they're just there to annoy you.
Yeah. They're there to keep anybody else. They thought up the idea and they patented it real quick, but then they didn't make anything from it. And it looks like the patent's coming due here soon, but it looks like they're trying to renew all their patents for like 5 more years. But this one basically this would be perfect for the guy that wants to make 200 maker coins because they'd be able to just set it
or 200 masks, really.
Exactly. Or someone who wants to do 200 face masks. Yeah. Boom. It'll print one. It'll advance off the end, print the next one, advance off the end, print the next one. This would have been the perfect thing to have for this epidemic.
Yeah.
I had people ask me if I was going to make them on the belt printer, and I saw Black Belt doing it. But I don't think it had the structural strength as the ones that were printed flat because the layer lines, unfortunately, for the 45 degree were not in the right place for those the headband face shield things because it would have, I could see way too many of them snapping when people put them on their head just because the layer line was in the wrong spot. Those were designed perfectly for printing flat. The strength was where it needed to be, unfortunately.
Yeah, even the ones that I sent to some makerspace in New York, but they're just entirely perimeters. There's nothing else to them.
Yeah, and and unfortunately for me, I'm like, I'm probably killing myself early here, but my basement is not the most sanitary area. I'm fighting water every year. I'm like, I'm sure I have mildew in places. I'm like, yeah, I don't have any alcohol. This is all the alcohol that I have in my house, and there's barely a quarter of a bottle here. I can't sanitize face shields with that.
Yeah.
I part of that Amazon wish list I told you about, one of the items on it was a Mars printer. I haven't set it up and fired it up yet because I can't get isopropyl alcohol to clean my print, so there's no point in setting it up.
Luckily, I've had my resin printer for like a year. I have like a gallon of IPA.
Yeah. Right now, you can't get any large bottles of IPA, and if you can, they're limiting you to one. That's one of the things that's on ration right now. If you go to Walmart, you can buy 1 bottle of isopropyl alcohol. 1 bottle won't do me any good because the biggest ones they have are these. They don't have the big 1 gallon ones right now because no one's making the 1 gallon because everybody needs small bottles. Now, I'll be glad when everything goes back to normal so I can go buy a couple gallons of isopropyl alcohol and set up my resin printer and try resin printing. And anybody that's watching this, I'll wait for the comments of, so when are you going to make a belt resin printer? I get asked that on a regular basis, and so far I have not been able to figure out any way possible to make a belt resin printer. So,
what is the feasibility of that?
It's just, I can think of ways to print on the belt, but to get infinite, no. I don't see it working, because you have to be able. You still have to go straight up and down. I can't think of any way to print with resin on a horizontal and have it work. I could get a larger build volume, because you could make it so it was constantly attaching to the side of the belt, maybe, if you set it up right. But even then, it's way too sketchy.
It's not possible.
I see huge mess with limited return. Not something I'm willing to play with yet.
That's the biggest thing with resin printers. Like, it's just a mess.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of stuff I want to print with resin, though, because I want to be able to, I need to get some bought. It's like the one thing I would do is I want to figure out how to resin print, and then the first thing I start doing is mixing all the colors I like with Tenacious. Because I've got some prints that I did when I first started 3D printing. I made this really cool Christmas display. It's V8 engine reindeer and a 59 Cadillac sleigh. And each of the V8 engines has reindeer antlers come out of the top. Well, I keep breaking the antler. I printed all FDM, and it's like they're like this big. I keep breaking the antlers off.
Yeah.
If I could resin print that with Tenacious, I could bend them over and twist them and it won't break. I want to reprint that in, clear red Tenacious and internally light it and everything else, But I've got it's like the first thing I ever really created, and it's sitting on the top of my entertainment center, and I'm afraid to touch it because every time I move it, something breaks. If I could reprint that all in resin, then it would be something I could get out and take with me to take it to Murph and display it. But I won't bring it out and show it to anybody. I show people pictures of it because I'm afraid to move it.
Yeah. Or it's so weird. Like, there were 2, and the 2 were us, and then it's 4, and then it goes back to 2, and then.
Yeah, everybody else they're too chicken to type anything else, with the except of Mike. And Llama came in, said "Sup goofballs," and left because we were probably too boring for him.
We got 5. We got.
5 watching now. Maybe someone heard me talking about him. Come on, Chris Riley, type something. Tell me you've been here the whole time watching. Maybe Joel came back. I doubt that, but let's see who would be in here. And let's see, Brian Vines. Come on, Brian, type something. I bet you're in here. Nope. Chris Warcocky. How about Chris? Any of the Chris's? Yeah.
I think Chris is live right now.
That
might also be the problem.
I was on his before I was waiting for you. I was in their chat for a while waiting on you. I know Llama was in there too. And see that now we're the only 2 people watching the stream because the other 3 just left. I started calling out names and everybody ran away. I bet you had all the right names and they were too embarrassed and they left. That's it. It was Joel, Chris, and Chris were watching and they all left.
Joel, Chris, and Chris. Yeah.
They all ran and hid the minute I called them out by name. But all right. Well, I guess we should wrap it up. I said if you got more questions or need help, we can always do another stream.
Yep. If anyone's got any other questions, I still got my build series going along. I've only gotten, I think, 1 other person on the group buys to do a Squire belt. So everyone's just like 6 White Knight belts, 6 White Knight belts.
Yep. Everybody still wants to go big, I guess. I hope everyone pays attention to this. And I want to say it one more time. If you're watching this video and you're building a White Knight, I'm going to point it out to you too. If you're building a White Knight, use from the Squire files, use both of your stepper mounts, both of your rear idler mounts, so you can, and the X-axis, the X or Y axis end brackets, use all the parts that the GT2 belt runs through, so you can use the toothed pulleys and the smooth pulleys instead of the flange bearings, and go with the whole hot end assembly with the direct drive from the Squire as well. You will get much better print quality if you go that route. As I said, I've already swapped the White Knight over to the direct drive hot end. The only thing I haven't done is reprint the files to go with the toothed pulleys, because I ran all my wiring through the inside of the extrusion, which would mean for me to do that, I would literally have to pull all the wiring completely out of it to switch over all those printed parts, and I'm just not prepared to go that far yet.
Yeah.
Though I'm starting to notice some noise from the that big print I showed you for the hood of that. I could see some noise from the tooth belt in that one piece. It's the only one I've ever noticed it in. I don't know if something else is going bad or what, but I noticed a little bit of noise from the belts in that, and I'm like, okay, I'm finally seeing noise from it. I need to switch this thing over.
So you know what's like, they're like maintenance, or is it like general printer maintenance for belt printers, or like?
You'll probably have to tighten the belt once, or the GT2 belt once or twice, because it'll stretch a little bit.
Yeah.
Getting the belt to track perfectly straight is really hard. That's a trial and error thing as well. You know, getting it, because if your frame's not perfectly square, then the belt's not. You can't just tighten it up again. You're going to notice your belt's going to track to one side or the other. And I've been told the belt tracks to the tightest side. So if it starts going one way, loosen that side up a little bit, and you have to play around with it and figure it out. And eventually you get the belt starting to track somewhat straight. But it's always going to be, at some point, you're going to have to what I usually do, and yeah, something else I should have told you. So I'll just tell you. What I usually do is, once it starts to track too far to one side, I'll take and loosen. You look and see which ends you've got tightest against the ends. That's the one you want to loosen. I'll loosen the screws 3 turns on each side, which gets the belt just loose enough you can slide it. I'll slide it back to the opposite side it's moving from, basically, and then I'll tighten those back up the same 3 turns. And I usually get 3 or 4 revolutions out of the belt before I have to move it back. I've gotten as many, like on the White Knight, I got it going as good as I got as many as 20 revolutions once before I had to recenter the belt. So it's usually not a big deal, because it's as slow as it moves when you're printing stuff. Really, to do a full revolution is pretty much 24 hours. So unless you're doing a 6-day print on the Squire, it's not a big deal. On the White Knight, like I said, it's an even longer belt, so I can go longer before I can recenter it. If you were doing a production run of 1,000, headbands, yeah, you'd probably have to get down there and stop it every once in a while and recenter the belt again. But and it's one of the things where I just haven't played enough with it to try and find a solution, because I haven't done any long production runs where it's become an issue yet. Someone suggested covering a roller in neoprene, so I've got a roll of neoprene. I'm going to try diagonal wrapping the rollers at some point and see if that keeps it from,
slipping,
walking across the roller. If that works, then I'll put a message out there. Hey, yeah, wrap your rollers in neoprene. It worked. Something else I want to try, but it becomes a little bit more of a mathematical problem, is, you ever seen an old track feed printer? They used to have printers that you had paper that had holes punched all the way down the side that you could rip off the holes after it was printed.
Okay, yeah.
And they had the little tooth cogs on each side. The thought was to put tooth cogs on the outside edge of the rollers and then take a hole punch and punch holes all the way down the side of the belt. The problem you get into is, on a track feed roller, it's no big deal, because it's a piece of paper going one direction only, and you have an end and an end. When it runs out, it runs out. To do that with the belt printer, the belt needs to be an exact length, and the rollers are at an exact diameter. You need to make sure the holes line up every time it goes around. And I haven't found a number that works yet with the belt lengths and the size of the roller that lets me space those teeth out to where the belt can keep going around in a circle and land in those teeth again. And I don't think it's possible without putting in some sort of tensioner like in the bottom center that would push up on it and take the slack out to make up the difference that you'd have with the length. It just doesn't. I can't make it work.
Yeah.
I'm not good enough at math to figure out that, yeah, I need to put the tabs on the roller at 1.23 inches apart, and then that'll work with a 2 meter long belt and a 3-inch diameter roller. I don't think there's a magic number, honestly, that works. I think you would have to figure out your spacing and then divide that into the length of the belt. I think you would have to design that into it first and then build the printer around all that. You'd have to say, I'm doing this spacing, and then space that out into the belt and go, okay, yeah, the belt needs to be this long, and then design everything else to that. Which in my brain, I can't work around building the roller, the rollers and the belt first and everything else around it.
It was interesting too. People in the group buys, whenever the first one that I did, everyone was like, you think there's any way that you could get the belt to already have the Buildtak on it? And I'm like, no.
Yeah. I have a design in my head for putting the belt on the Buildtak on the belt. It's basically a laminating machine, but taking it from my brain and making it a reality, and then who's going to have it?
Yeah.
You actually have to, what it would be is that you would have a set of pulleys that you put the belt on, that you could basically, you'd have an arm that would move one pulley out, you slide the belt on, you pull it, and it would pull the belt nice and perfectly tight. And then you'd have another pulley that would basically mesh right up against the belt. And then you'd have to have a slide tray that the Buildtak sheet set on that was lined up straight, perfectly straight with the belt on the rollers. So you would peel the end of it off, attach it start it on the roller, and then you'd have a hand crank that would spin the belt and slowly pull the Buildtak sheet in. You'd have to have another roller that would pull the sheet off the back of it as it went. I can picture it in my head, but actually, you'd have to mount it to a wall or something to do it. And
yeah,
perfectly said, you'd have to have a slide tray that is the exact perfect width for the belt, so the belt couldn't can't either direction. If done right, yeah, you could sit there and just run a hand crank and it would feed the whole belt through, no problem. Then I just cut that one seam, would make it easier. But I'm still trying to figure out a way to, unfortunately, I thought, when you mentioned you were going to get a tour, they might have let you have a tour. I'd have been like, I'm so jealous because I asked to see how they make it and they won't let me see it. Because they talk about those belts are the Buildtak sheets are printed.
Yeah.
In some way. I'm like, there's got to be some way to load my belt into a printer and then print the Buildtak onto the belt.
They made these belts really quickly. I ordered, I think, 8, and they made it in a week.
But I'm like, I don't know how. I can't see the process, so I can't figure out a way where they could apply the Buildtak straight to the, because I want to get it seamless too. If we could figure out how to apply it straight to the stainless steel belt, would be, put it on a machine, pre-stretch the, nice and tight, do 50 revolutions on it, so it's pre-stretch the sheet a little bit, and then print the Buildtak straight onto it would be awesome. The only thing I found is Ken Cobb tried to do a flex plate system where he was doing PEI powder coating. According to him, it's flexible enough it would be able to make the 3-inch turn. You could take a stainless sheet and send it and have it PEI powder coated. The problem is that belt is so thin, if you damage the PEI powder coating, you've just, there's no recoating it. It's okay. That stainless steel sheet is done. Throw it away. Order another one. So you're throwing away a $300 to $500 belt. At least with the Buildtak sheets and the stainless, if you take your time with a putty knife and some acetone, you can clean all that off of the belt and put another one on.
Hope I never have to do that. But
yeah, providing you didn't in any way crinkle your belt, but that's the big thing is, yeah, you've got, potentially $500 to $600 worth of belt that is a wear item on your printer.
Yeah, like everyone was saying, like, oh, it'd be great if we could get these like PEI powder coated like Prusa did. I'm like, A, it took them a year to fix that.
Yeah.
And B, they consider that a consumable, those sheets. You don't want your belt to be considered a consumable.
Yeah. Because you can't. The only way to get that powder coating back off is to sandblast it. Sandblasting would ruin the belt because sandblasting heats up the space you're blasting, so you would literally warp the hell out of that belt getting the PI powder coating back off. You can't just spray another coating on top of it because it's like, yeah, it's you could do it from what I've been told, but yeah, any place you embed your nozzle in it and mess up the coating, that spot's done. Like I found out, and I posted it, that glue I use, I get it to focus in it, the Micromark same stuff. If you cut if you cut or tear a Buildtak sheet, it will glue it back together. It's not a great bond. It will eventually break down again, but it does work. My Creality, my CR10 Pro, I had a print stick too hard, and I got the razor blade in there, and I cut the Buildtak or the fake tack sheet instead of getting under the print, and I peeled it up. I said, I wonder if this will work. I painted along the edge, and I stuck it back down, and it held. Use it, because usually once you cut them, if you stick them back down, they always tend to peel back up where you cut it. Put a little bit on the edge and put it down, and it actually holds. It doesn't peel back up. So it will help you prolong the life of your belt should you tear it.
But oh, please don't tear your belts.
Yeah, don't tear your belts. Don't tear your belts. Don't gouge your belts. Like I said, I can't say enough. Make sure you put in your hard physical end stops, and before you start printing, make sure you set them to 0.2 millimeters away from home position, so that if it skips, it doesn't just totally gouge your stainless and Buildtak and melt the crap out of it. And I don't want to see anybody ruin $500 worth of belt.
Ugh.
I've already watched one person do it. It's not pretty. Like I said, anybody wants to test something and see just how badly your design can be broken, send it to Midnight Giant. That man is, and I wish anybody from CNC was in here, they would 100% back my statement, because he's got a bunch of Artemis printers, and he is constantly guys, I wore this part out. Guys, I wore that part out, because he just prints so much stuff.
They just look like, how?
They're like, hey, we made this new carriage design. We're sending it to you. 3 months later. Okay, here's the problem with your new carriage design. I broke this already. He's very hardcore on his printers. He'll test it for you. I'm like, he was joking when Creality posted the thing up. I was like, yeah, give Karl one. When Karl says he's got it fixed, send it to me, and I'll tell you if he really fixed it. So, yeah, Mike, if there's something to be found that can be broken, Mike will find it. But
I was looking at Buildtak's website, because their parent company is called Ideal Jacobs Corp.
Yeah.
So like they're just some like fancy label company.
They're vinyl stickers, wraps, and stuff like that, which is why they won't. Because I asked if I could see how Buildtak's made. Unfortunately, Buildtak is in that big factory. There's so much stuff that's proprietary to what they do. They won't. That's why they wouldn't let me in to see it, because you wouldn't just be seeing how Buildtak's made. You'd be seeing how everything else Ideal Jacobs is made too.
I was like, when I went to go pick up the belts, they were like, they package these things in giant boxes, and I'm like, I was expecting you to do like maybe some plastic or anything, or like you didn't have to package them in 20 boxes.
They did mine in. Can you still see me? No.
No.
They sent me mine in like an 8-inch sonotube.
Yeah. The way they sent mine was just a giant box. Like it was rolled up probably like this.
Yep.
With just a rubber band around it in a giant box.
Oh wow, yeah. They put mine in it too. It was that big, but rolled up that big, but it was a nice round tube. The ones that kill me is how they send you the stainless steel belts.
Oh my!
The box this big with the 2-inch foam insulation all the way around. They don't mess.
No, when I got them delivered, it's a 20 by 20 by 20 box for the White Knight, and it's got padding all the way around it, a foam like core in the middle. Then it's taped around all of that. Then there's more padding material inside.
Yeah, I actually sat down and played around with when Printed Solid talked about making the kits. I figured out how to box the kit. My design was actually making it to where they were going to you could put all the smaller parts in a box that was 3 inches tall. And then the box was going to slide into the belt. And then you would put your rollers on each end of that box. So basically you were making, to support the shape of the belt, you'd slide the box in the center, the 2 rollers inside that, and that would keep the belt pulled tight. And then the outside box was double reinforced cardboard that all that set down into, and then all the longer pieces sat on the outside of it. So the belt would actually get packed with a cardboard box and the rollers to keep it pulled to its full width, just like it is on the belt printer. The extrusions would all go around the outside edge of it to protect it, and then just cardboard double top and bottom.
Yeah,
it all fit in like a big pancake box instead of being wrapped and folded the way they send it to you in that big, huge cardboard.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting way they fold that too.
Yeah. Well, they're trying to make it as compact as they can without kinking it, I guess. I don't know if sending it that way versus flattening it would be, but
I had to ask you, one of the rollers they sent me had like this sticker on it. Does that really matter, or should I try and get it off?
I would try and get it off.
Okay.
I mean, to be honest, like I said, if you find someone that's got a lathe, once you assemble your rollers, it's best to have someone with a lathe just true them up, because that's just extruded. I've had up to, was it 3/300ths variation on the roundness of those rollers. When I did the White Knight, the first time I put it together, I did it without turning the rollers. And as the belt went, you could hear it creak depending on where the rollers lined up, where it's getting tighter and looser. So once you get it all assembled and glued and all put together with the steel shaft in the center, if you can find someone with a lathe, ask them to put the rollers, on the lathe and just true them up. Just mill just enough to take it to where it's all smooth across the face. It does. You can do it without, but it'll work better if you do.
Okay. All right. So I think we're all set here for hopefully for a long time, at least, until wiring happens.
Yeah, 2 hours. Hopefully we've answered as many questions as we could.
Yeah. Hope the questions that I set up at least were a good starting point in general.
Yeah, my apologies to anybody trying to build a Squire, because there's no way I am building another one or tearing this one completely apart to do from scratch just to make another.
Yeah.
How many episodes was the White Knight? 35? Yeah, I'm not doing that again. I haven't made another instructional video since that because it burned me out so bad. I've had people ask me if I'm ever going to finish that Da Vinci that I showed you that I started doing the upgrade on. And I can't bring myself to clear it off and start filming instructional again, because it's just that editing all that just burned me out so bad.
Yeah, that's why I just did the streams. I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm going to edit this.
Yeah. That was not fun. And the amount of time, you figure the amount of time that I said, was it the 5 weeks and 7 minutes? That was 5 weeks of evenings and weekends. I'd work all day, come home and work from 5 o'clock till midnight on the printer and all weekend on it. And yeah, but I had to try and the only complaint I ever got, or a thumbs down I got on any one of my videos, was the video that was over 30 minutes long. I'm like, yeah, because it was so long. Everybody just, the goal was to try and keep the videos. I tried to keep them under 15 minutes whenever I could. But the amount of editing you've got to do to speed stuff up to get to that.
Yeah.
I hope I didn't cut out. Everybody said it was because I could have made them shorter. Everybody's like, no, keep the detail. I'm like, I'm hoping I kept enough detail for the amount of time I spent doing it. But I guess you'll be the judge of that because you're using them more than you're probably looking at them more than other people are because you're trying to take what you need out of that for a different purpose.
Yeah, I've watched pretty much every single video that I can, and then also partially using background on building a couple of printers to know. Still not enough.
Sorry. Yeah, you definitely picked the hardest one to build, unfortunately.
Yeah, the longest one is wiring the Duet.
So, all right, man. I'm gonna let you go.
Yeah.
Have a good night. Stay safe. You're still working too, right?
Yeah, I gotta be at the restaurant all day tomorrow. I have to be there at 10 a.m. and I get off at 8.
All right. Well, be safe. Practice social distancing. Don't catch the bug from anybody. I'm doing the same thing. Trying not to let anybody make me sick. So I'm still working too. So
that's the biggest thing. And when just immediately, as soon as something's wrong with you, you're like, oh, please don't be it. I woke up with a migraine this morning and I thought I was dying. Yeah,
I had a headache today too. It was like literally for 4 hours before the stream, I took a nap to sleep it off. I was hoping it was gone by the time we started.
Yeah.
It's like every morning I'm getting up and I'm taking my temperature. Oh, no fever. I'm still good.
Yeah. So. As soon as something's wrong with you, you're like, do I have a fever? Am I okay?
Yep. And that's the thing. I've had this little mild cough. I've had migraine headaches. I had a couple days. I worked on my bus and I was underneath. So for a couple of days, my chest was all tight. And I'm pretty sure it was just from being underneath the bus working on stuff. But they say tightness of chest or shortness of breath can be a symptom. So I'm like, okay, is this the bug? And it's like, no, I've had every symptom but the fever.
Yeah.
Never all at separate times though. It's like never all together. It's like, I've got this, never all at once. And I've never had the fever. I'm like, I've either had it and kicked it really quick or I haven't had it yet.
Yeah. That's what I was saying. Like, I'm working around people. Like, I have to have something.
Yeah. And are you still handling money?
Yeah. So, like,
ugh.
Gloves, just give me that. Okay, let's pull this off after I put it in the drawer.
Yeah, I worked at Advanced Auto Parts for 8 years. Every winter, I would get a sinus infection because you can't get away from the germs. People are handing out money. They're across the counter coughing on you. Working retail, it's impossible not to get sick. I feel sorry for everybody working retail right now that is still, that's still taking cash because you've got to touch that money. They touched it too. It's like, I felt guilty. The person came to mow my lawn and I said, look, you can say no and I will not be offended at all. I'm like, I've got $100 bill in my wallet. I'm still working. I have money. I don't know how many people you're still mowing for. If you want, I'll give you this $100 bill, but I won't be offended if you don't want to touch it. She's like, no, I'm good. I've got hand sanitizer in the truck. She goes, I'm wearing my gloves. She took the $100 bill, shoved it in her pocket. She's like, I'll give you a credit and I'll, she goes, I feel the same way. She's like, I always use cash. I don't carry cash unless someone hands me money. I don't have cash. I like being able to stick my card in the machine. And I love the fact that almost every business now has turned off PIN for under $25. So I can walk up, stick my card in. It beeps at me to take it back out and it's done. I haven't touched the PIN pad at all.
Yeah. It's like even everyone, like when people come into the restaurant, like wearing face shields, wearing a respirator, wearing gloves. And I'm like, okay, that's just a little bit too much.
Yeah. And the thing is, okay, if you walked in, you were already wearing the gloves because you wore the gloves to touch the door.
Yeah.
This is what I love. I watched a guy. He puts on his gloves. He opens the door. He walks in.
Scratches his face.
No, he walks in. He pulls his wallet out of his pocket, takes his card out, pays for his card, gets his food. He goes out to his car, sets his drink cup down on top of the car, takes his gloves off, throws his gloves down on the ground, and then grabs his coffee cup. So you touched the door, you touched your wallet, you touched the pin pad, you grabbed your coffee cup. So everything you touched before is now on that coffee cup. Took your gloves off and then grabbed the coffee cup. Congratulations, you're still going to get corona if it was on any of the surfaces you touched before you took your gloves off.
Yep. And I'm like, when people see me not touch a door handle when I'm carrying your food out to your car, and I'm like, I'm doing that purposefully. Like, yeah. I'm like, I'm using my back to open the door. I'm using my foot to kick it open so I don't get the germ on.
Yeah.
It's like no one's ever understood how to be sanitary in their life.
Wearing the only way, I was like, people was like, oh, I got to wear my gloves. You go to the store. It's like, guess what? I seriously doubt the people that put all that product on the shelves were wearing gloves and face shields. If they were, great. But were the people that put it in the boxes before it got to the store? How about all the people that have shopped since you got there? How many people coughed on that, touched it with their hands, and put it back on the shelf? You can't be sure it's not on all the product you've got there. So unless you're going to take all that stuff, get home, set it all out on a table, and get your big fogging alcohol machine and fog it all in alcohol before you take your gloves off and put it in your house. Guess what? You're still going to get it. All you're doing is trying to decrease the chances by wearing that stuff. But all that extra, the only thing I think is reasonable, I get the face shields because that keeps anything from splattering on your face. Yeah. And you're less likely to touch your face out of instinct because you're going to smack the face shield as opposed to just the mask over your mouth like this. All this protects us from you coughing on someone else. It's not really like for me to wear one is pointless for protecting me.
Yeah.
Anything's going to suck right through my beard into my mouth, into my face and my mouth. But if I cough into the mask, it's keeping it from making that big cloud around me. That makes sense. As I think that's the face shields and the face mask, as long as you understand that the face mask for you is protecting everyone else, not you. You're keeping your cloud smaller around your body as opposed to coughing on all the product in the store and everything else. That makes sense. The gloves and everything else, to me, unless you are in your position and you're good enough at it to where you're the person working the register and you're handling money all day. Now, you're still spreading it to you're keeping you protected if you don't touch your face or any of your body before you take those gloves off. Unfortunately, you're not helping anybody that you hand money back and forth to because everything's touching those gloves and going right back out.
Yeah.
The only person those gloves are protecting is you, as long as you have the presence of mind not to scratch your face, your eye, or anything else before you take them back off.
Yeah. You should see how fast I pull those gloves off. They make your hands so disgusting. Working a 4-hour shift alone, I go through at least 100 gloves.
Yeah. I like what there's PA passed one now, effective Sunday. We have to wear some sort of face mask to go into any establishment. And all establishments are required to provide their working employees face masks and a break every hour to go wash their hands. Sad thing is, if they don't put hand lotion out along with that, every employee in those stores is going to have chapped, nasty hands after the first day.
Yeah.
But that'll do more than wearing the gloves ever will, because at least, you're going to cut down. Because if you wear your gloves for an 8-hour shift at a retail store, you're spreading 8 hours worth of germs with gloves, as opposed to at least if you wash your hands once an hour. What did you touch in that 1 hour every time? That's still got to be better. But
just doing the small things.
Yeah. But yeah, I honestly think the people in retail have a higher risk of catching it than the people in the hospital at this point. Because at least the people in the hospital, you're cautious around them. You don't know who walks through the door in a store. You don't. Then you got the idiots that try to cause riots that walk up to people in line and start coughing. And I'm saying, I tested positive yesterday. was it somebody did that in the Walmart and the police charged him with domestic terrorism? I love it. I was like, that's perfect. That's what they should have got because they tried to start a riot. They equated it to yelling fire in a theater.
Oh wow!
And yelling fire in a theater is considered inciting a riot, and now they've classified it under domestic terrorism because you're trying to get people hurt by your actions. That's perfect. Go ahead, start another riot.
Wow.
Yeah, society's going to be much different after this. I love how they're saying the handshake might not survive this.
It's going to be interesting, like in the aftermath of everything, like what industries are going to be able to pull through all of it.
We're sitting here speculating today. All these businesses that are taking the interest-free loans to be able to keep paying their employees.
Yeah.
How many of those businesses know darn well that they're already out of business and are doing that but they're doing it for half the right reason because they get to pocket some of that money, but they're also doing it to keep their, these smaller businesses have like 4 employees and that's their income. Okay, yeah, we'll take these loans and keep paying you, help you out. But then as soon as it's all over, they're going to go, yep, we're bankrupt.
Yep.
I see that happening a lot too. But I'm kind of I'm disappointed to see how many businesses have already just thrown in the towel. We're already seeing restaurants taking the signs down. It's like, before it was like closed for quarantine. Now the sign is gone from the building. You're like, no, they didn't just shut down temporarily. They're out of business. They're done. They packed up and left. Like,
yeah, my boss is doing everything to stay open.
I'm waiting to see. I work right near Newark, Delaware, where University of Delaware is located.
Oh, okay.
Shut down. At first they shut down and said all the students were going to do class from home. And then they started busting on everybody because the frats were still all piled into one house and they were still throwing frat parties. And they said, no, you guys need to separate, which is bad because all those kids that were confined to that 5 square mile spot of Delaware went back to all their states of origin. So the first case in Delaware was a teacher at University of Delaware. He had been to parties and everything else. So, darn well he exposed all of his students. So we just sent that exposure out.
Yep.
But now you've got the school is empty. All the businesses that supported all that college, the restaurants are all, delivery and takeout only. Like I'm pretty sure every waitress that said, no, I won't deliver to somebody's house got fired. Because it's like, yeah, congratulations. You're no longer a waitress. You're a delivery girl or a delivery boy or whatever. Because
pretty much, that's how it worked for us. Like all of our waiters are delivery drivers.
It's like, yep, we'll pay you for gas, but congratulations, you're doing at-home delivery now. But who are they delivering to? Because all the college students left. I don't know how much of Newark is going to survive this when all is said and done. Because, the majority of the business for that town is college students.
Yeah. Those college towns, especially.
Yeah, I can't see it being very I get the feeling there's going to be a lot of vacant business spaces when this does end. And there's talk now how many universities are going to open back up after this. Because a lot of them switch to online schooling. Think about it. A lot of people aren't going to want to go back to the schools. Labs and stuff will have to continue, but they see where the possibility that half the curriculum can turn into strictly, online at-home curriculum. It'll drop down to where the only classes you go to a university for are one where you have to be there to do labs and stuff like that.
Yeah. Luckily, I'm still in high school, so I got that going for me, but...
Yeah, but you're schooling from home right now too, aren't you?
Yeah, it's disgusting.
They don't even my daughter's school, they're doing it, but it's like, okay, they got 4 classes a day for 2 days and then 2 more days where the teachers just post assignments. And then Friday is you can schedule a conference time with your teacher if you need help day.
Oh yeah, no.
They don't even know how they're going to grade it yet. it's like at first they said, oh, it's going to be pass fail, and then they said, yeah, unfortunately, there's no criteria for pass fail in high school, so they're going to have to grade it somehow, but they don't know how they're going to grade it yet. Is it going to be graded on a curve? Is there a minimum grade you can get? Is there, it almost sounds like there's no possibility of a failing grade at this point.
Yep.
They just want to get the kids, and I get it, because they just want to get the kids through this year. Let them get credit for this year, and then hopefully by the time the next school year starts, we're either out of this or they have a better plan. But I feel sorry for the kids that graduate this year, because they're already talking virtual graduation.
Yeah, virtual graduation. Like, schools are already thinking about postponing the first semester.
Yeah. PA already announced that they are definitely not going back to school this year. So
It's not. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's not. And I'm just to the point now, and I'm going to say it this time, but I am so sick of the phrase, we are living in uncertain times.
Yeah, oh my God. I've heard every single time I hear it on the radio, I'm like,
can we find a new catchphrase, please? I'm like, between that and Delaware's governor, I swear, if he one more time says we haven't seen an epidemic like this since Spanish flu in 1918. Thank you. I didn't realize that from the first 6 times you told me that. Every time he does a conference, he says it at the beginning of the conference and at the end of the conference. It's like, really? You didn't mention that already at all, Neither is the rest of the news outlets out there. There was an epidemic in 1918? You're kidding. It was Spanish flu. What? When did this happen? I didn't know about this. No, we all know this now. Everybody can stop telling us about it. We've all had our history lesson enough times now.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, we keep saying we're going to end it. Let's just
got to commit now.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess I'm going to be building this sometime next week, but I'll see y'all in the build series. What is it? Day 9, day 8? I don't know.
I lost track.
So,
I do my best to make it there for you when I can.
Yeah.
As we've learned, it's best if you ask me questions before the stream instead.
Yeah.
Because the lag on the chat is so bad. I'll be typing an answer to one question. You're reading it. I'm like, no, that's not the answer to that question. It's the answer to the question before that.
Yeah, the lag. So I think you see my response a minute after you type what you said.
Yeah.
So I see your response, and then there's like a 30-second buffer.
Yeah, and usually you've asked me 2 questions, and I'm answering the first one, and you're reading my answer thinking it's the answer to the second one. I'm like, no. And heaven forbid if I type something wrong, I'm back. Well, wait, don't do that. So I sometimes think it'd almost be better if we did this on some of the streams. At least that way you get an instant response to your questions. The rest of the audience gets the lag, but we don't. So you get to where you're doing the electronics and anything, you start running into problems, we may want to do another StreamYard stream for your stream instead.
Yeah, just the electronics is going to be a pure nightmare. I can tell already.
So, as I said, if you run into issues where you still have problems with the belt, we can do this, and I'll direct you live through putting the belts through or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's not terribly hard, but I can see where it gets confusing.
Yeah, I'll cut those plates and then I'll build the rollers this weekend.
As I said, the big thing will be making sure we put the heater on the right side of the hot plate so that when you flip it over, it's the right orientation, because you want that nice professionally cut edge on the front edge for the belt. If you get a little wavy on the other belt, it's not as big of a deal because it'll be in between the 2 plates. It won't be quite as big of a problem.
Yeah.
We can compensate for that. So.
All right. So have a great night.
You too. Bye, everybody.
See you, everybody.